It's time for Don't Come Here, Stories of the Treasure Coast, where we talk about beautiful beaches, stunning sunrises, and unforgettable experiences. So, if you don't like that sort of thing, definitely don't come here. Now, here's your host, Joshua Flores.
Thank you so much. On today's episode of Don't Come Here, we're going to be talking about the scenic, beautiful waterways that we have here in the Treasure Coast and the amazing fishing that you can do here that is unlike anywhere else in the world. We have some of the most beautiful areas where you can catch some of the most amazing fish, go out on the water, and just make a wonderful day of it on the Treasure Coast. And it really is unlike anywhere else in the world when it comes to, being out on the waterways and fishing on the Treasure Coast. And today my guests are experts in that field of where to go, what to use, and how to go out to find your best catch. My first guest to my right here is with White's Tackle. White's Tackle was founded in 1925. Their current owner bought them in 2007, but my guest here has been working with White's Tackle since he was 15 years old. General Manager Jeff with White's Tackle, thank you so much for being here on the show with me.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Excited.
You pretty much grew up with White's Tackle.
Oh, yeah.
So you've grown up on the water
Since
here
the late
in Florida.
90s.
Yeah.
Been doing it all.
That's awesome. And, you've had the opportunity to travel the world and, learn about different kind of fish and how to catch them and what different baits and tackles and stuff to use to be able to find what you're looking for out there in the water.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
Yep.
It's really cool. And, like I said in the opening, we really do have a very unique waterways and things like that and places that you can go fishing here in the Treasure Coast where you can find pretty much anything that you're looking for.
Oh, yeah, it's very diverse. From
Yeah.
the freshwater fishing to our western part of the county all the way to the offshore scene. It provides everything.
Oh, absolutely.
From bass to billfish. So
That's so cool,
pretty cool
that you can catch such a wide variety of stuff right here in our own backyards.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
My next guest is the captain and owner of Last Mango Fishing Charters. He's been he grew up in Vero Beach and with a surfboard in one hand and a fishing rod in the other. Please welcome Tris Colquitt. Thank you so much for being here with us, Tris.
It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. You've been, captaining boats and doing fishing for years and years, over 20 years of experience that you have out on the waters. And
Sure, just in the charter fishing
Yeah.
business.
How long has it been that you've been actually fishing itself? Like you grew up, like it said, with fishing rod in one hand.
Yes, well, as a child I fished the riverbanks and eventually ended up commercial fishing, hook and lining kingfish, and then moving on to some long lining swordfish. The swordfish industry was really something back in the day.
Oh yeah.
And now they've put some limits on it, some restrictions that are good.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And eventually I took a couple years off from the fishing scene and ended up back after renovating the boat in a charter fishing world.
There you go. Just couldn't stay off the water.
Yeah, couldn't, no way.
I hear you. And my final guest is TC Palm Ryder. He's been with them since 1994. He is an expert about all things outdoors and fishing and all of our waterways that we have here in the Treasure Coast. Please welcome Ed Killer. Thank you so much for being here on the show with us.
Sure, Josh. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely. It's great to have you guys here because, one thing that I have made abundantly clear here on the show is I am not a big outdoorsman. I've gotten to go and do and experience some things with Don't Come Here. I've gotten to go on an airboat ride. I've gotten to go paddle boarding. But this is all things that I've never really gotten into. I've done a little bit of fishing with my dad and with my family and stuff like that, but I'm not a big outdoors guy. So to be able to speak on the different fish that we have here and the different places to go, I am not the guy to talk to. So basically, to anybody here that is contemplating a vacation to the Treasure Coast, I've got some of the best experts right here with us. So like, what are some of your guys' favorite places to fish here in the Treasure Coast?
Well, one thing I'd like to add is that kind of what you're talking about with Jeff earlier was that the diversity of what we have here is amazing.
Yes.
So there's an old marine scientist here named Grant Gilmore who's always told us that you can catch over 800 species of fish within 10 miles of the St. Lucie Inlet sea buoy.
That's amazing.
And you can catch everything from, like, in fresh water, like we were saying, there's fish called big mouth sleepers, and you can catch everything like blue marlin, right at the same area. So that diversity is unique because where we live in this part of Florida, we are in a crossways where we're in the temperate zones from what you see in the mid-Atlantic states, and we're also in the tropics from what you see south of us. So we have a combination of species. So you can catch things like a mutton snapper, which you can only catch up to maybe Sebastian, as far north as you can catch those, but you can also catch a red snapper, which you can only catch as far south really as like Stewart. So we have this combination of different diversity of species that all kind of live in this area, and a lot of it is anchored to that Indian River Lagoon. So we have a whole, the like you said, the species are endless. We can really target a number of different species, a number of different ways, and that's one of the great things about living in this area. So, yeah.
Yeah, to your point, there's not many places in the world that you can go sail fishing on a winter day, come in early, drive 20 minutes, and catch a largemouth bass. And it's, you think about it, there's not a lot of places you can go do that.
Yeah, we've had guys
we can
like
do it here.
Like Monty Peters he's done that, where he's fished in Lake Okeechobee. He's caught a snook in the Indian River Lagoon, and then he's caught a sailfish the same day,
right?
All in the same boat the same day. So
yeah, exactly.
You can do that here. So that's something that's kind of interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're fortunate, in my mind, to have such a great inlet.
Right.
Fort Pierce Inlet is probably the most easily navigated inlet for miles on either side. Sebastian's a little bit tougher, and Stewart can be challenging as well. Fort Pierce Inlet is recognized as a port.
Wow.
So the federal government has requirements to keep the inlet to be transferable over with larger boats and ships. So
it's deep water. It doesn't get real rough in the mouth of the inlet like it does in some of those other inlets.
It's a great point, because when you look at how we can access the ocean, that's what Trish is referring to. Really, Sebastian is a very shallow inlet. St. Lucie Inlet and Stewart is a very shallow inlet. Jupiter, you can kind of get in and out of that, but even that has a shoal on the seaward side of it. So what Trish is saying is very important, that they maintain that inlet. The Army Corps of Engineers has designated it as a different class of inlet, so they maintain it by dredging and keeping it sand free. And it's a very short, straight shot right out the inlet of deep water. And the deepness of that inlet, also the depth of it, also helps to flush the water in and out of the Indian River Lagoon, which is a nursery for many of the fish species that we actually fish for. So it's a combination of factors there. And they opened up the Fort Pierce Inlet 100 years ago this year.
Oh, wow.
Maybe it's 101 this year. Maybe it's 100 last year.
Yeah,
so it's 101.
Yeah.
Time
Close
just
enough.
flies on by.
Yeah.
Anyway, but to Trish's point, I mean, that's an excellent part about the inlet. So, yeah.
That is amazing that, like, when you think about it, like, we do have such a unique area right here where we're at between the three counties that, like you guys are saying, you really can't get that amount of variety many other places anywhere in the world. So it really is a huge destination for fishing here in the Treasure Coast. I mean, we have fishing tournaments here. We have people that come from around the world for charters, and like people like literally make the Treasure Coast a destination for fishing.
So if you don't like a nice inlet to traverse, don't come here.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
yeah, there you go.
So now, with the whole idea of all of the different variety of fish that we have, you guys over at White's, I'm sure that you have to have a huge variety of tackle and lures and baits and everything else in order to be able to accommodate for somebody who's coming in, whether they want to fish freshwater or saltwater or a specific kind of fish that they're looking for or something.
Yeah, and Fort Pierce is it's a true gateway into the Bahamas. So there's a lot of boats that come here from the Northeast or the Mid-Atlantic states, and they come to Fort Pierce and they get fuel and they get bait and they get provisions, and then they leave from Fort Pierce because of its easy access, through the inlet. They come here, get all that stuff, and then cross to the Bahamas. So we have a tremendous amount of people that come every year just to go to the Bahamas. But they're here. They fish a little bit sometimes when they're here in Fort Pierce. But we have all that tackle. We have some freshwater, but mostly we stick with our coastal saltwater stuff, rods and reels and everything. Anything you need.
And I saw on the website also that it did say that you guys ship worldwide.
We do.
So, and you guys have a very easy to navigate website where I was able to go on and look and, see some of the things that you guys had to offer. And pretty much anyone anywhere in the world could go on, look at your inventory, see what you have, and you guys will ship it right to them.
Yeah, and so with Fort Pierce being such a great hub, getting to the Bahamas and then beyond to the Caribbean, a lot of the boats come to Fort Pierce, and then they find us and they see how easy we are to work with, and then they travel on. And then I've made relationships with a tremendous amount of boat captains on private sport fish boats and the mates and crews that I've held relationships with those guys for 20 years.
Right.
So they call from all over the world now, wherever they are. I have customers in Cape Verde off Africa and Costa Rica and Cabo San Lucas and
that's amazing. So
South Pacific
so White's Tackle has really helped to make Fort Pierce a destination, a known location in the world.
Yeah,
because of
the fishing. The fishing really made Fort Pierce what it is.
Right.
In that community, because all those people came here to fish initially. And then since then, now they've traveled all over and whatnot. So
White's Tackle has blossomed from the years in the beginning of my charter fishing world.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
From a tiny little wooden shack almost,
exactly.
which was very special because you walked in and it still had all that fishing gear.
Right.
Now it's expanded to more of a Bass Pro presentation.
Right. Yeah.
And it's fun. It's a little more personal than Bass Pro.
Right.
You know the guys that are there, and it's always fun to walk in and be greeted with a smile and, hey, Tris, and what can we do for you?
Still need that handle for that reel.
Yeah, I do.
We can remember things like
Right.
that.
Right. And that's the kind of personal connection that you get to make at a local shop. I mean, even with as large as you guys are, you do have that relationship with the people that come in, and it's such an amazing thing that you have, that you can build those kind of relationships.
Yeah, definitely, and that's what it's all about community.
Right.
So if you can be part of that community and
absolutely
learn your customer and learn what he or she likes to fish for or what they don't. And
yeah. Even somebody that does come down on vacation, say they're here for a week or two, and they come into White's Tackle and they make a couple visits in. You know what I mean? You guys are gonna,
we have customers from certainly in the wintertime. We have our winter residents, but we have customers that come. There's two guys that come down from Ohio a couple times a year just to fish, and we've grown to know them well. And one of my guys will call them, fishing's really good, say, hey, why don't you guys get down here or whatever. So it's things like that we just kind of, everybody becomes a friend really. And,
right.
Just keep everybody in the loop.
Yeah,
that's what
absolutely.
it's all about.
One thing that's great about White's is the longevity. So you guys have been here since 1925.
Right.
And I remember, like Trish was saying, the first idea was it was one little local hometown tackle shop on 2nd Street. Used to be in that PP Cobb building, I guess, and then
it started there, right?
Yeah, moved up the street to 2nd Street. Now you got 4 locations. So you're in Jupiter, you're in Vero Beach, you're in Stewart, you're everywhere.
Yeah.
And I remember when we used to go in there, they would talk about the big one, and what they meant was the big hurricane of 1949. That was like the one that really caused a lot of problems for white's tackle. not Francis, not Gene, not Hurricane David in 79, but the one in 49 was the one that caused all the problems.
Right.
So it's that history where you go through generations of owners and generations of customers, where they've built this base up, and they've been able to stick around for so long. And in the state of Florida, which is still a relatively new and growing state, you have very little in Florida that has that look back in time like that.
Right.
It's like a looking glass that goes all the way back, to the old days. They still got some stuff in there that you can see, from some of the old days, so that they preserved and kept around. So, but it's the same, customer relationship they've always had.
That's
so whether
amazing.
you want to go catch a snook or whether you got to go yellowfin tuna fishing, you can find what you need at White's Tackle. So it's pretty good.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I mean, speaking of the people coming in from out of state and, coming down on vacation and stuff like that, you deal with a lot of out-of-staters too with Last Mango, doing the fishing charters and taking people out on the boat. And, I was able to look on your website and look at some pictures online of, all of the different families that have taken pictures and tagged Last Mango. And, like you guys are out there all the time on the water with a lot of different families. And
it's a good feeling to know that and to see them come back year after year. And a lot of them, it would be just once a year. They come on a vacation. Some of them have a favorite hotel that they stay at in Vero or Fort Pierce. Some of them have a second home and come down and stay there. So between the repeat business and their word of mouth, I'd say that accounts for well over 50% of our business.
oh, absolutely, I'm sure.
Then the website does the rest.
Right, yeah. Well, like I said, we were talking earlier, the website that you have there for Last Mango is very user-friendly. It's very easy to see how to book something and the rates and what you have to offer. And, I'm sure you build a rapport with your customers. I mean, your rating right now, you're at a 4.9 stars on Google right now. So, obviously, you're doing something right
There's
out
always
there.
that point one.
There's always that one.
Right, yeah.
Who's unhappy going out with trips?
A 5-star operation.
The theory there is
I'm getting 6 stars. Right, you heard it here.
the theory there is that 5 stars is suspicious.
So you give yourself a bad rating.
That makes you real.
Right.
4.9.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
good.
So what can customers expect in a day of fishing on Last Mango?
Well, we offer 2 trips, a 3/4 day from 7 to 1, and for the hardcore guys, the 7 to 4, which actually provides 3 more hours of fishing because of transit time. But we can make a great day for somebody on our 3/4 day trip, and families, which make up a good deal of our business, are more apt to be tired out by the
end of the 3/4 day, yeah.
So we've been fortunate this year in particular, after a couple of years, the absence of the mahi dolphin, and that is everyone's favorite. If there was one fish that you'd like to be able to catch as a charter boat captain,
Right.
Such
it
a
would
great
be
fish,
that.
they named it twice. The mahi-mahi.
Yeah.
Those Hawaiians were smart.
Right, that's right. They knew. They knew.
So anywhere from the mahi and sailfish, which has also been more prevalent of late, to a standby fish called a kingfish, which is a go-to fish for action, and
And a delicious fish, by the way.
delicious,
Yes.
as well.
I mean, they got a bad knock. I mean, everybody talks about smoking them, but I've eaten plenty of grilled kingfish. It's fine. It's great.
Oh, yeah, it's good, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I have customers who call me and say, we're going to be back down next month, and what days do you have open, and how's that going to work with our schedule? And some of them will say, hey, my freezer's empty. Now, I don't know how they get all that fish up to wherever they live
Right.
and into a freezer, but they do. And that speaks well for all the fish we catch, because an awful lot of people don't mind freezing it and keeping it around for a meal every now and then.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean that's another thing that with the Treasure Coast is we do have amazing seafood, and you know some of the amazing eating that you can do off of the fish that we have here. You really can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, and it doesn't get any fresher.
Yeah,
than
then
on
just
back
right
of
off the
Glass
boat.
Mango, yeah.
Yeah.
And at the City Marina dock, there are 2 restaurants, one of which will cook your catch, which is a nice thing.
Yeah.
So sometimes people aren't necessarily staying in a accommodation where they can easily go home and catch their fish, cook their fish that night.
Right.
So so we send them over, and sometimes right off the boat to the restaurant, and Cobb's Landing, and they have a beer and a nice lunch or dinner.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen Tris cleaning fish there. He gets back from the charter, and there's a fish table right there next to where the people, right between the 2 restaurants down there, and so he fillets all the fish for the people, for the customers. You know, first of all, they put them up on the board, and you take a nice picture, and then you know, make a nice memory for the family.
Right.
And then they can put it on their Facebook pages or whatever. But then you'll fillet up a wahoo, or you'll fillet up a greater amberjack or a mahi-mahi, like you said, and those people get to take home fish fillets. Or they'll also get the memory of catching maybe the first sailfish, which is always a thrill. And all these fish, these are all offshore fish, and they all jump and leap and dive and pull, drag. They all fight hard. None of them fight easy. They're all fighting hard.
You got to work for it.
Yeah, that's right. You do. You earn your keep out there when you go fishing with Tris. So, but yeah, it's great time, and everybody gets to have a good time doing it. So it's fun.
We talk about bending a rod.
Yeah.
So that just means the thrill of having a fish take your bait and take the drag and just go the other way for a while. And sometimes we have to coach our customers because they are charter, because they're new to it, and they don't realize that the fish is going to have its way momentarily.
Right.
And so a lot of it is wearing the fish out because we use light tackle, and that makes it more fun, more challenging. You get the feel of the rod bending and the technique eventually of how you bring it back in. So it's a learning experience for people, and they come back with more experience and do it again.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, it sounds like an amazing time to be able to head out on the water. And with my experience, I've never been on a charter boat. I've never been out the deep sea fishing and
We
stuff
got to
like
hook
that.
you up,
So
man.
that's what I was actually going to say. Like, it's
We've got
something
to
that
go
I
here.
I know, right? That's something I would love to experience. Now that you're talking about it, it seems like there, with so much involved in it, it seems like it's got to be such an exhilarating moment when you get that hit and you're trying to do the fight and everything. Like it's just got to be so exhilarating.
It captures everyone's attention, and the thrill of it is fantastic.
Nothing
I
greater.
might add that with the sailfish, it's a catch and release only
Right.
effort. So we don't even bring them in the boat anymore. We just bring them alongside and release them, and people get the photos in the water.
Right.
So it's a good feeling to know that the fish is going to continue to be a resource for us.
That was an ethic that this area was early on in pioneering that release ethic, especially for sailfish,
Right.
which have little food value really. So, there's a limit. The Florida state regulations say you can keep one per day as long as it's a certain length, and you can smoke it and whatever. But the food
And you
value
can grill
is
it too.
Yeah, you can grill it also.
It
It's just not that great, but
Right.
you can do it if you have to, and if you're living on a desert island or you're stuck in an elevator.
Or if it comes up tail wrapped, unfortunately, and drowns or something. And it's,
That's right. That happens
It's a waste
sometimes.
to let it go. That
Right.
way, but
But this
it does
whole area
happen.
was very early on in the 30s. Started that whole process of, maybe till the 50s they would catch them and put them on the dock still. But after the 50s is when they started saying, maybe we should just let these go because we can run into so many of them. This happens to be an area that's very close to the migratory patterns for sailfish during the wintertime. So typically we think of it as a wintertime catch. And when they come down here, we can catch several, you have a shot at 10 or 12 of those a day. You can catch 10 or 12 sailfish a day, which is just amazing. It's just a thrill. And but early on, we realized in this area, why should we bring them all to dock? Let's go ahead and start letting them go. So
Right.
yeah.
Now, of course, with fishing, one thing that everybody has is their big story, their wild, their once in a lifetime fishing story. We got to hear.
Don't look at me.
No.
Trish has got way better
Chris
stories
has got
than
some
I do.
unbelievable stories.
Oh, thank you guys.
Tris, let's go
I
ahead.
appreciate that.
Let's get a story from you real quick. What's one of your most memorable catches?
I have to drop back in default to the commercial
Yeah.
fishing days for my all-time stories. So,
I'm sure.
There was a day that we would go out for 3 days and nights, and I got a bad weather report one day. We had our line down, and it sat overnight, and we'd pick it up the next day. And the weather report sounded manageable, and it's time consuming to get the gear back in the boat. So we were going in to anchor up in shallower water, and another big swordfish boat had come by us, and he was going in, and he said, "What are you doing on anchor?" And I said, "Well, the forecast isn't great, but we're going to hang out here and get our line back in the morning." The tide had been running so hard that day that we couldn't get our line back up. And we ended up in 50-mile-an-hour winds and 14-foot seas, and a wave broke over the bow and crashed in and broke all the windows in the pilot house. And it was just so rough that it made me realize that under those circumstances, you can't really help yourself.
Right.
You're just there. You couldn't walk, you couldn't move, you had to crawl around.
Right.
And we survived it. But it was a lesson to be learned.
Right.
I got a good Tris story. So Tris calls me one day. He goes, "Hey, just want to let you know that Jeremy Wade, the guy from River Monsters, chartered my boat for the week." I'm like, "You got to be kidding me, So I start working through all the back channels to try to get Jeremy, an interview with Jeremy Wade.
Right.
Well, by the luck of everything, they didn't want to do it, and there was like, well, we're not going to release this show for a year, and you can't write about this, and you can't write about that. And I'm like, great, you guys have like tied my hands here. So, anyway, but thanks to Tris, I got to meet Jeremy Wade, and we got to do a little interview with him and write a kind of a funny story. And I compared him to Race Bannon and all that stuff. Anybody has that reference? But anyway, it was kind of funny. And later on, Jeremy Wade tried to contact me to find an email for Carl Hyacin. And I thought to myself, I'm like the Kevin Bacon, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon between Jeremy Wade and Carl Hyacin, But it was all thanks to Tris.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much once again for being here with us. I really appreciate you guys coming on here, talking to our listeners and our viewers about just how awesome the fishing here is in the Treasure Coast. But for anybody who is not familiar with White's Tackle or Last Mango or anything like that, Jeff, why don't you go ahead and let our viewers and listeners know any of your social media info, any of the website info, so that way people can look up and get a hold of White's Tackle if they need you for anything.
Sure. So we're on the internet at www.whitestackle.com. You can find us on Instagram at White's Tackle, and you can find us on Facebook also at White's Tackle.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you.
Tris, go ahead and let our guests know about a little bit about Last Mango.
Last Mango's at the Fort Pierce City Marina. The website is fishthemango.com, and you can just Google Last Mango and find us without any trouble at all.
That's right. And Ed, once again, thank you so much for being here with me as well. If you want to go ahead and let our guests know where they can find any of your stories, where you've written about your articles and stories about fishing here in the Treasure Coast. You've had a ton of different stories about the red snapper and all the different fishing conditions here in Florida. Just let our guests know.
You can follow us at tcpalm.com is the easiest way to follow us, and you can find us on Facebook as well. So
awesome.
Yep.
Thank you so much. So once again, on behalf of everybody here, it's been a pleasure talking to everybody about fishing here in the Treasure Coast. And if you don't like going out and spending a day out on the water, if you don't like the thrill of the catch, and if you don't just like having that camaraderie with your friends out on the water as you fish, then definitely don't come here.